Welcome, friends. Welcome back to Cocktails After Dark. Today we're going to start to tackle the Negroni. Now, the Negroni is a cocktail that I love to hate. Absolutely love to hate this cocktail. It's one of these things where I'll have one, I'll order one at a bar, and it is the best cocktail I've ever had. And then a week later, I'll order it at a different bar, and it's the worst cocktail I've ever had. And it's so hard because it really is 3 ingredients and equal parts of each ingredient. And so this is where, as we've learned through this series of cocktail videos, the individual ingredients vary both in their own flavor and how they interact with the other ingredients in the mix. One of the other things that I found is that when I order a Negroni and I kind of look over at the bar and the bartender is mixing one up right there, I often don't like them. I often find them unbalanced and a little bit harsh. But at bars that I've gone to where they've served them draft style, so they've mixed them all up ahead of time, they've put them into a corny keg probably in the back, they're serving them pushed through with beer gas so that no carbonation or nitrogen gets into the mix. It's just enough pressure to push it out the tap, and they present it to me that way. I often like that Negroni. So what I'm going to do is I've mixed up a couple of Negronis in this bottle. I'm going to stick that in the fridge. I'm going to let it hang out for a few days. Then I'm going to mix one fresh, and we're going to taste them back to back and see whether that variable matters. And then in the future episodes, we'll work through these components to see if we can nail it down. Okay, our Negroni's been hanging out in the fridge for about 3 days. So we're going to make a fresh one, and we'll see what happens. Same proportions, same alcohol, same. Now in this recipe, I guess the vermouth. The vermouth is an incredibly important part as well, and is a variable that could completely change the entire fabric of this drink. So there we go. Fresh one. Get this one out of the fridge, and we'll mix up the same amount. So we'll do 3 ounces into this glass just so that they're about the same. I did mix 2 in this bottle. Now the idea of mixing cocktails ahead of time and putting them into a bottle for use later is nothing new. It shows up in the very earliest cocktail books. And in those books, they talk about mixing them up and taking them with you either on a long journey or to a friend's house or to a picnic. But apparently it was quite common in the late 1700s, early 1800s to mix them up ahead of time in large amounts. Okay. Finish these off with an orange garnish. Just a couple of pieces of zest. Express just a little bit over the top. Rim the glass just so you smell the orange and in. Same with the second one. Okay, fairly classic Negroni done 2 ways. Freshly made and allowed to mellow for a couple of days in the fridge. Let's give them a smell. Okay. Interesting. The one that's been mellowing for a few days has more of a complete aroma. You're not smelling individual things, you kind of get this whole. Okay, so let's try the fresh one first. Classic Negroni. Yes. I mean, the Campari is the #1 thing. A little bit of sweetness from the vermouth, botanicals from the gin. It's a little bit spicy because this is it's a spicy gin because it's made with rye. It's not a spicy gin because there's spice in it. There's a kind of a minor distinction there. Very flavorful gin. and I really like it. I think it works well in this combination. Now, the one that's been hanging out for a little while. Gin forward. Whereas this one is Campari forward, where the bitter is the first thing that you taste. This one, I taste the gin first. Definitely the Campari's there. Definitely the bitterness is still there. Definitely the entire cocktail tastes like it should, but the flavor from the gin is much more pronounced. Yeah. Okay. There it is. For me, in this instance, with this particular set of ingredients, mixing it ahead of time and leaving it in the fridge for a few days definitely brings a better flavor for me. This is something that I enjoy much more than the one that was made up fresh. So there is something to all of those bars that are mixing it ahead of time in a corny keg, keeping it in the back, and then serving it draft style, even though it's not carbonated, serving it draft style into a glass rather than mixing it right away. So this is a cocktail that I think I'm going to come back to over and over and over again. And what I'm going to do in future episodes is swap out the gin and the vermouth, make them ahead of time in the fridge, and then check out the flavors with those two variables. There's also something to be said about maybe not using Campari, but using a different Italian red bitter. Although that is the classic one. That's the one that everybody uses. So, what did we learn this time? I learned that I would rather make a Negroni a few days ahead and leave it in the fridge. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.